just to start off, like, I was thinking myself, why would I want to monitor moisture? Why is it important? Well, all things being equal, I think, moisture is a key factor in yield in water-limited situations, which most of Australia is, unless you farm in the UK or other nice parts. And for where we farm, like yield, it determines our nutrition strategies. You're always tearing your hair out about your nitrogen decision. Yield determines your attitude to risk, whether you're in a high yield area or whether you're getting consistent, average or high yields. Your yield determines the machinery that you require, because if you're in a low yield, consistently low yielding environment where you're only going to get by with a cheaper amount of machinery. And then ultimately yield determines your profit. So from all that, we need to accurately estimate our yield, and I think in this day and age we should be able to, and a measure of soil moisture can assist in this. We've approached this technology a little bit differently. Not sure if I should say who we use, but it probably won't matter. We're using a Centec probe. There's other probes, Aquaspy, but it's just how it worked out, because we did a project in conjunction with Sanfa. So we're quite lucky there, and we were quite happy with Centec. They seem to have the know-how and the technology, and what they didn't have was a product that was suitable for broadacre cropping. So our journey's been trying to develop this probe so it's suitable for broadacre cropping, which means sinking it underground so you can just leave it there permanently. And so, we've jumped on board, but it's quite a big learning process about, how the moisture probes are going to work, how moisture is going to be stored in our soil, and most of all, the root behaviour of our crops. So these are a few key lessons. This one's site location. I mean, I don't know how you get around that. There's a whole myriad of different things you can do to try to find your location of where to put this probe. We were lucky that I knew my soils well enough, and the first time we did a core or dug the hole, it was in the perfect spot, because we're, hopefully I can describe later on our soil type, but it's a heavy clay. But we popped another probe in 100 metres up the hill, where I know that it's slightly different soil type, and the soil's probably going to 50 centimetres before it hits rock, and then you can go just 50 metres beyond that and we've got a deep black soil. But where we put this first probe, it was into probably a soil type that represents 70% of our farm, and the data we got back from that confirmed that we're in probably the best spot to represent that 70%. The second probe's in probably what covers 20% of our farm. I'll describe the soil type a little bit later. The installation methods, I think, is critical, because you don't want water running down the side of your probe. Centec uses a slightly undersized hole and drives in their, I don't know what you call it, the tubing anyway that the probe sits in. It's very important to characterise your soil so you know what you're dealing with, and it probably needs to be your soil in your specific area, because we have been using characterisation maybe 20 kilometres to the north, but they had a boron layer at 70 centimetres, and so really I don't have that, so it just gave me totally the wrong impression of how the water may have been sitting in my soil. And the important thing is to gather a few years' data. Don't think you can pop this thing and hit the ground running. Well, we thought we could to start with, and it probably was okay, but I think it's about building up a bit of information. Certainly as a farmer, get some assistance, because this is some pretty heavy technology, and we just look at the big picture. So probably how we approached it wasn't too bad. We didn't get right into the fine detail. We just looked at it over a period of time. Derive outcomes based on your experience. Farmers know when it's wet, when you've had a lot of summer rain, when you've had a lot of winter rain, and how the spring's shaping up. But, if you want to quantify that, that's where you need the probe. They're only part of the decision and they're not the answer. So we'll get on to our probes. I'm only going to follow the story of one probe, which is in our main soil type. Characterised as clay loam over medium to heavy clays. Plant available water capacity for wheat is 130 millimetres, so that's low, I would think, compared to a black soil. The pH is 5.8 and 0 to 10. And acidicity, I'm not quite sure if I'm quite right there, but that's how we measure it as ESP. You've got to look where it's come from, because root growth is critical when you're using moisture probes. And if you go back 10 years, our soils were heavily waterlogged, a lot of problems with acidicity, a lot of problems with acidity. Our yields were ranging from 2 to 6 tonne, massive variations in things, but I think before you get too in depth on the moisture probes, you've got to correct all those problems. And over 10 years, we've brought the pH up from 4.5 to 5.8 in calcium chloride. The acidicity in the top 30 to 40 has come back to 0% from about 6%. You'll see this is critical. It's still very high down deep. You know, if I had someone explain my moisture graphs to us, I might understand a lot more. But I think that would have to be prohibitive to some root growth down that lower depths. So we're lucky enough to have a soil water characterisation. I've drawn some lines in here: 10 centimetre, 20 centimetre, 30 centimetre, 50 and 70, and these are the depths where the moisture probe is measuring the moisture, and it will measure 5 centimetres above that line and 5 centimetres below. So this is our early moisture probes, mind you, because now we've gone to this subsurface one. We're only starting from this 20 centimetre depth, and we're not getting information here. So you're accurately measuring all the water here, and you're just interpolating from here. And it's just important to understand what layers are holding the most moisture. The one that evaporates the most is the 10 centimetre and holds the most. And then the other critical one for us in our soil type is at 50 centimetres here. And so now I hope I can take you on a bit of a journey through our cropping rotation. We didn't quite get there because the prototype probes, they broke down towards the end. I mean, they would work all the time. There's no trouble with them working, but because we're fiddling with them and trying to develop the subsurface, that's where I ran out of data. So we'll get through a bit of it anyway. And you'll see the decisions that we make are really complex. They're based a lot on my history and knowledge, but are also based on this moisture probe. This is when we first got into it, 2007. I mean, we were quite lucky in 2006. We installed a weather station, so we got temperature data, we got moisture data, or rainfall, and then we got these moisture probes. This is probably, I don't know when they were installed, June 2007. And it was an interesting summer, even compared to the last couple of summers. We had 200 millimetre of rainfall, which was a massive event. And that showed up straight away on these probes. Up at this high, the higher you go up the graph, the more water will be in these lines. I don't need you to see what levels they are. It's just, you'll just know that this line here has more water than that line and more than this line, and so on. And the critical line to follow, hopefully you can see the blue line here. This is the 50 centimetre. That's our critical one. And this one here is 70 centimetres. We find that deep moisture is critical to making your decision, because this is a period of time, mid-August to mid-September, when you're really making your critical decisions about your yield and going to put your fertiliser on and really set yourself up for the year. So lucky enough in this first year, a lot of deep moisture, which we knew from the summer rain, but we didn't know where it was in the soil. But the moisture probe is picking it up. They say to let these things bed in for a year or two, but that sort of worked straight away, we thought. It's a very dry winter. Can see that by a lot of water use in this 50 centimetre. That's very unusual at this early point in time. And the other layers are about at 10, 20 and 30 centimetres, you know. They're flat-lined, and that can tell you that no more moisture there, heavy use here, really early in the season, you're in trouble. The only thing that's going to keep us out of trouble and give us an average season is deep moisture. So in this year, it's a little bit hard how you make your nitrogen decisions, because you've come out of 06, bad drought. This year, we applied no more fertiliser in this period on our wheat. Just because of how this looked, we weren't quite sure whether that was telling us what we knew, but it turned out to be the case in the end. We had a lot of residual nitrogen from the drought of 06, and the only things that got fertiliser a little bit earlier in the season here. Now where do we go? Oh, that's just to show you how 2007 panned out. You can see that it went right up until the start of October before it started accessing the this deeper layer. And I just thought that was interesting. This is our first year. Can the roots get down to that 70 centimetre layer, or is there some other problem? But yeah, they certainly can, and that's what saved us, I think. That summer rain and the ability of the soil to store it, and our plants to access it. So I'll move on to the next year. I think, did you read up there that was, what was that, malt barley? It'd be nice to have a whole lot of data, because this is like a rotation, so if you could do that over 8 years, I think that all that information would be fairly powerful. So you come to the start of the next season, you're under the pump because 07's taken all your moisture. Dry summer. It's interesting how you pick up this 10 millimetre of rainfall. I may not get time to talk about the summer weeds and all that, but we'll see how we go. But it really doesn't do a lot because it soon evaporates over the month. And we're sowing oat and hay in that 2008, but it's a really dry start, you know. We've just got nothing under us, and I think that's what we're facing a bit this year too. So we're going to change our decisions a bit because there's nothing under us, and last year didn't turn out that good in the springtime, so we're going to put a lot more nitrogen down deep, or like just under the seed at sowing time. Because sometimes you might put none out on the wheat if you get rain early, but this time we put about 50 units on our wheat, which is quite high for wheat, 50 units of nitrogen up front, because you just don't want that growth. But we were just worried about the season running dry again, dry start, and we were preparing for a below average season with a start like that. And it wasn't till this period of time, I've just taken snapshots, this graph is continuous the whole way, but I just take snapshots. We had a wet winter, or an average winter, as best you can have it. Had profile filling and our yield estimates. You can see this blue line? That's up. That's about as much water will fit in there. I don't think the values really matter. You just want to know over a period of time. And this is probably a good graph because it actually shows the full point for 10, 20, 30 and probably even the 50. And you can tell that because when you get rain here, no, I'm full, I'll dump it down here. I'm full, I'll dump it there. No, I'm full, I'll start feeding it here. So we can probably grab these values over a period of time, but might need more technical expertise as to whether we can, and that may be able to relate that to how much moisture is held in each layer of our soil. So it's just good to note down that these are the full points, and you can use that over a period of time. But this was the season changer for us. The 50 centimetre had a fair bit of moisture in it, so we were fertilising. Oh, that's probably what this black line is. When we come in and fertilised barley and canola, and we gave all of our fertiliser, that's about 30th of July, to the canola and the barley, because we were worried about another dry spring and not getting the ability to spread any more later on. But we were still unsure of the season, because you've only filled your 50 centimetre, there's nothing at this 70 centimetre, and that comes about at this point, so that's a real change in our strategy. And we come in here, and we're buying 70 units on our wheat, whereas you think the year before we'd only given our wheat 30 units. So because of this change, and it's probably only change picked up on the moisture probe, I mean, we knew it was a wet winter, but we're just not sure if that moisture is going to be down in your profile and there for the springtime. So we were pretty impressed that the graph sort of showed what we were thinking. Might have been punting on it a bit, but threw on a heap of nitrogen here. And as it turned out, the season did turn out average. Whereas you really had a very dry start. I wonder what it says about the spring. On there, that's right, we had a very dry springtime from mid-August to 2nd of November, total of 28 millimetres of rain. You know, both 2 seasons in a row where we really got stuff all for spring. So you can see rapid moisture use. This is mid-August to mid-September, back in that critical period. So yeah, we must have gone a bit earlier. I wondered why that was on so early, that fertiliser on the wheat. So we mustn't... so you know, obviously coming into the dry spring, no more fertiliser went on the wheat. And can see we'll go on to the next slide, and that really shows it up here. No water, heavy use at the 50 centimetre and at the 70 centimetre. Now this is open hay, mind you, and so this is the first time I'd ever seen a crop access at 70 centimetres. I'm just not sure what's going on there, whether moisture's lifting up or oats may actually be a good finder of water or something. So they just seem to behave different. And the interesting thing is when you cut the hay, it's probably the only crop that I did see a cut off. And it's just good for us to know that you're conserving moisture when you cut the hay. It's always sort of been known, but at least we can quantify it this way and then relate it to our following crop, which is canola, and how much that might contribute to our yield. So, we'll flick on and keep it. Now we're coming to 2009, this is when we're sowing the canola. Once again, no summer rain, but we're very lucky, right at the last minute. Just around sowing time we had 50 millimetres, so it could have been a start similar to 2008, but what would have been different is because we cut the hay, you've got some residual moisture here, which is still showing. I thought that was surprising because I would have thought it would have evaporated over summer. So coming out of hay, because you might think, you've just got this one crop on this one site, on this one probe, but we extrapolate this across our entire place. The only time we can't do it is coming out of oat and hay because of this extra moisture that the oat and hay's left. But you can have barley on here and you can extrapolate that to your barley and wheat over the rest of your place. So I think it's not that important to have multiple probes, but you need one or two in the right soil types. So I've said that there, 2008 hay crop got moisture. But just have a look at how that 50 millimetres that fell over a few days has really just started to feed into the profile. Not only fed the 10, the 20 and the 30, it's also got into the 50 and even the 70 to a degree. So I thought that was quite impressive at the start of the season before we've even started sowing. And so that gave us, a lot of confidence that we're getting average season. And the other thing it is, you've got this moisture. And so we suspected that it's wet, it's warm, which it always is in May, and this is going to let us get going quite early. So you're going to get a lot of crop vigour. And so we lowered all of our seeding nitrogen on our wheat and canola. We didn't on our hay, and we failed to realise this. Coming off of 3 dry years, not a lot of hay was grown. So we really wanted to get the hay going. Sowed it early, fed it a lot early, and it all fell over. So we come unstuck there and had horrific lodging in that year on our hay, but we've learnt from that, I think, and that's what we could probably learn from this probe, that you get a big shot of moisture there, your crops are going to get a lot of growth, and it's really important to try and hold them back so you can conserve that moisture for the springtime. And how are we cracking here? This is mid-August to mid-September. In that critical period again. Yeah, I didn't quite grab when because we had low seeding nitrogen, we come in early. This must be early August. It was more July when we put our big shot of nitrogen on the canola and the barley. So we couldn't hold off on them as much because we didn't put much down at seeding time, and generally you can't wait till late in the season. It's probably only wheat that we can really hold off our nitrogen decisions and base them on what happens with the moisture level. But I think in this case that we saw the moisture was quite good, so even at this point, this is putting the nitrogen on the wheat in the end of August. We came back over the canola, which is quite unusual. You never come back on canola because you just shut the gate, but thought the season had quite a lot in it because you got quite a lot of moisture in the 50 centimetre, 70 centimetre, and it was an average winter, which is quite a lot because that's it must be 160 or 80 millimetres of rain. So to get that's very unusual after the last few years that we've had. And so come mid-September to mid-October, people remember back to 2009 that it was quite an average spring around the field days time, and we did get a fair shot of water towards the end of September, I suppose. And this is when we come in again on the wheat and we put on another 80 units of nitrogen. So we really went for broke this year, and could have gone broke too with the heat wave in November, but we just knew how that the moisture pros were telling us we had the moisture here. So we tried to set the wheat crop up for average, but as soon as we saw these spring rains, you get thinking yourself, you go and have a look at the probe, and yeah, no, it is feeding into those profiles, and I was interested that it did even feed into 70 centimetres, because I thought that the 70 centimetres was fairly full here. I suppose it's starting to use a bit there, but it was just interesting to come here and, yep, we've got extra now, so this is really late in the season, 30th of, end of September, so not much can go wrong here. We've got to go above average. But as it turned out, and that heat wave in November, I wish I'd have printed out a graph in November, because it would have been interesting to see what the water use, or whether the crop used any water in that November period. It's quite interesting to look at the temperature data, because there must have been 10 or 12 days above 37, so it was fairly extreme. So I suppose the only advantage we got out of 2009, because it nearly killed the crop, where's this? This is in April. Because it nearly killed the crop, we did have a lot of residual moisture ready for the 2010 crop. So you can see this 50 centimetre quite high here. And the 70 centimetres got a little bit in it. No summer rain, but we'd had 2 events of 25 millimetre, and then we sowed wheat in 2010. You can just see these 25 millimetre events, what they're doing. That's probably why I was going to talk a little bit about summer weed management. The moisture pros are probably helping us manage the whole program. When you're going to spray your summer weeds, when you're going to cut your hay, when a crop's going to run out of moisture, when you're going to spread your nitrogen. It's just a tool to try and help you make decisions on the farm. And just on the summer weeds, we're probably lucky that the summer weeds don't get going too well in our country unless it's really wet, unless you've got a lot of moisture in your deep layers. So we're just quite lucky that, if you've only got 25 millimetres, it's not, your summer weeds aren't going to get away, because it costs a lot of money to spray summer weeds, and we found that in 2010. We spent a lot of money on chemicals, and was it necessary or was it not necessary? And this year we've taken a different approach, that we're not necessarily spraying our weeds because we've got even less moisture than this, and we know that these top layers here are going to dry out. And if you've only got volunteers or something that you probably don't need to waste chemical on, they're going to probably die or look pretty sick up until seeding time anyway. But certainly if you've got other summer weeds, melons, and that, you may or may not have to go in and spray them. So we're just trying to use it as a tool to try and help with our spray decisions, so we don't have to go and waste money. Unfortunately, this is probably where my data ran out. Yeah. Would have been nice to see 2010, but it's probably not that bad, because probably there's moisture in the profile, and we know how 10 and 11 finished up or went on. There's a lot of rain, and we were never really moisture limited through those 2 years, and so we've missed a little bit of data, but it's probably not too bad, because we probably weren't relying as much on the moisture data in 10 and 11 as we had in the early years. So I hope you get a little bit out of that, and time for a few questions.
David?
Kym, can you just tell us about the different crops, say canola and legume and wheat and barley, whether you noticed any major differences in their ability to take moisture out of the profile?
I think it's all those improvements we've made over time, and particularly the use of our deep ripping. Probably didn't mention that one, I think, because no till needed to be in there, and we're ripping to 150 millimetres below the seed. That with the lime and the gypsum, has helped all of these crops push their roots deeper. And so I think they all behave in a similar fashion. Like, I think if you tried to do this 10 years ago, there's no way wheat would have got to those depths, and especially not canola. It used to have the disease of growing sideways. So things have come a long way, and I think these...
Oh, right. There you go. Kym, what was the establishment cost per probe?
Oh, it'd be a stab in the dark because it depends the telemetry and the other things you want added to it. Leighton might give a firm answer, but I would have to say you need about 7,000 and above or so.
No, $5,000.
Yeah, but if you wanted rainfall and temperature and humidity and
moving into the weather station side of things, yes, that's correct. It's purely for a probe without rain, was about $5,000.
plus the ongoing surface telemetry.
Kym, you made a comment about having the soil characterised with you to start with when you had the probe installed.
Yes.
And that it told you you had a plant available water holding capacity 130 mils, I think, from memory.
Yes.
How do you look at those graphs and think in terms of how much PAW is remaining, or is it just you're just looking at where the chart is?
Because I thought you can get tied up a bit. I'd like someone to help me, because I'm sure you should be able to relate it, and I probably am relating it to it, because I know that that's what's there. What's 130 millimetres? It's probably 28 days moisture, and if you look at the different levels, you can see, 10's full, 20's full. If you know they're all full, then you can probably say, there's probably 120 there. I do have my 28 days. So. And that's what it's been showing with the dry springs we've had for the crops to survive like that. So
your comment would be you really need to know what that water holding capacity is in mils for these probes to be effective.
Yeah, I think if you want to get a calculation at the end of the day, which you should be able to with these as to what your yield's going to be, I think it's possible that, it's essential to know that for your area, and hopefully it's the same for all your paddocks, as long as your soil type's the same. It's obviously got rock depth issues and texture difference. Is that...
All right. The probes linked to the weather station.
Our weather station is the Davis weather station, so that it's not linked at the moment, but over the next few years we're going to install hopefully a few probes and have a weather station installed to it. Theft has been a big issue, so we've just gone with a few stations are well away from the road, and that's the trouble with our northern properties. Well, more than theft, it's just a lot of damage. So what are the type of weather stations? I think anything can be linked because the telemetry is multi.
No, I'm using actual weather stations, and you can look it all up with the telemetry and probe, and those can all fit together, and you can actually get the data feed coming straight through as well, so you can do rain gauge and those kind of things all fitting in the same package or same software program and the screen on your computer.
As we just add CCTV and that'll sort it all out.